Hey, dear listeners, Jorge and Anfisa, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's go back and watch.
Hi.
Hi. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. We'll see.
Is it okay if I come in?
No, I'm just standing here with the door open.
I missed everything about Anfisa. I missed her presence. I missed her voice. I missed her laugh. I missed her smile. I even missed our arguments.
This is my apartment.
Okay, so they have reconciled and they are moving back in together. It's her place. He's moving back in. He's moving to her place. And he is talking about how much he missed her, which, you know, I can believe that. I think they genuinely love each other the same, or, you know, want to be together. They obviously have some major questions about their relationship, but I think their relationship is genuine, contrary to what a lot of people think.
I didn't make room in here for George's things. There is not enough room in the closet. If he wants to put his stuff somewhere, he should bring, like, a drawer or something.
What do you think about living here?
I like it.
Do you?
I like it more than our previous apartment.
Are you happy that I'm moving back in?
I don't know.
I'm sorry for all the lies that I've said to you, all the lies that I've said to hurt you. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, you're saying sorry is not fixing the problem.
I know.
All right, so he's apologizing, which is good. And she's saying, look, just saying you're sorry isn't going to fix the problem. And that's okay to say if you're in her position. You're just like, it doesn't erase everything you did. Now, you know, listen to my deep dive on apologies. We want to talk about the apology system. And there's a lot of things that need to happen back and forth in an intimate relationship regarding this. So what I would have suggested to her, if she wants to make this work, which she does, you know, she's letting him back in the, you know, they're trying to work things out. And I would say to her, you want to appreciate what he said, and then if you want more elaboration or you want additional elements of the apology, then you can request that, but you don't want to just shut it down. And so saying something like from her side, she could be like, oh, well, thanks for that. That means a lot to me. And I kind of feel like I want more to this. Like, have you thought about why you did those things? Or how are you going to fix the problem? Those kinds of questions would be okay.
No, it's not fixing the problem, but it's at least letting you know that I know what happened.
You just abandoned me. It was just, I don't know, challenging emotionally.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting. I've seen this before, obviously, in couples, but on the show as well, that when there is a reconciliation, they've had a break and might miss each other. And also, they don't have recent conflicts because they haven't had contact with each other. So there's a greater ability to be differentiated. You often hear me talk about differentiation, and listen to my deep dives on it. You can do a search for it on my channel. But the idea is that we have a baseline differentiation level. And based on the context, we might go up or down. And so when we're in the midst of a lot of conflict, especially if it's chronic, our differentiation level will tend to go down. But when things are going okay and there isn't a lot of stress, then our differentiation will act as though we're at a higher level of differentiation, meaning that you can see the situation more accurately, you can admit your own side of things. And so she is saying that, and you can see your emotional process, you can reflect on it. And she's saying, well, let's rewind that, because I think it really summarizes the whole thing: abandonment and hurt.
You just abandoned me. It was just, I don't know, challenging emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, that sums up the whole thing, and I'm really happy that she can see that in herself. That's one step of many that is usually required to fully recover and have enough self-control or healing around that. But she's saying that I felt abandoned and I had tremendous emotions. And then when she has those tremendous emotions, you know, hurt and anger, then she will do things that she hopefully regrets later.
Are you willing to give me another chance?
Well, yes, that's why you moved here today.
But I already see, like, you're giving me this crazy attitude.
Well, of course. Sorry, I'm not meeting you like, hi, George. I'm so happy to see you. Oh, my God.
Okay, so she does this a lot, and I don't know if this is a cultural thing. I think some people have said it might be kind of. Of course, we can't just blanketly say all people from a country are the same, but a version, or not a version, but a tendency to not have a lot of PDA, a tendency to not be very vulnerable in situations like this, particularly when the cameras are on. I don't know. But he said to her, "You're giving me this crazy attitude." And I'm like, ugh, what is he saying? But I think what he's saying, and I think what she received, was that since he arrived, she's being standoffish. And then she says, "Oh, okay, well, what am I supposed to do?" And I think, yeah, she was protecting herself. I think they both were. And so he, in his way, was creating a bid for some indication that she likes him. And then she did it in a sarcastic way, but also in a way that I think might have helped a little bit. And that's a good move. So if there's nothing else you can do, because I think they're having a lot of difficulty right now, then at least making some light joke about the situation, the way that she did, can liven the mood, can create some back and forth, some communication. I think she was actually trying to communicate in her defended way that she is appreciative that he has arrived.
First, I have some doubts. I don't trust George because he has lied to me so many times. I think George needs to understand that forgiving him is going to be a long process. It's not like I'm gonna forget about everything in a second.
Yeah, so we're in that mode where he's the one apologizing and she's the one going through a process of forgiveness, which is good, but why isn't it both ways? I mean, she has done some horrific things. Is she sorry? Is he looking for forgiveness? It doesn't seem like that's the case. And so that's notable.
I made an appointment for counseling. How do you feel about it?
Counseling! Yay! But I'm sure it'll just be one episode and it will go horribly. I don't know. Maybe it'll go well, but typically it's just one episode. So one episode, one session.
I feel good about it. I feel that maybe you could help us. It's my first time doing anything like that.
Are you going to be completely honest?
Yes.
So that's very normal that couples will come in, and because she's not saying, will you be completely honest? I think what she's really saying is, are you going to admit the bad things that you have done? And that's also based, I think, on a really common premise that people come into couple therapy, that it is a debate, that a judge will judge who's right and who's wrong, because that's usually where people are coming from. It's just like, I'm right and they are wrong, and they never admit they're wrong, and I need someone else to tell them that they are wrong. And there can be some utility to engaging in that paradigm and having that conversation. It's not completely unheard of for me as a couple therapist to say, like, well, it kind of sounds like you were responsible for this part and your partner was only reacting to, we can do that. But really that's not the core of what's helpful in therapy. The core is for each person to identify what they are responsible for, not for you to hope the therapist will blast your partner. But it's totally normal that's the urge or the premise or the thing that even gets people into therapy. Sometimes that's what motivates them to get. It's like, well, if we go, then a therapist will really blast them. That'll be good. But then once they get acclimated to what therapy really can be, and they're like, oh, I guess therapy doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be a winner or a loser. We can actually learn about ourselves and take care of each other and understand each other and learn how to not trigger each other's attachment disruptions and have better communication and bond and all the things. And we never have to decide which one was more problematic. Now, I will say that when there's abuse happening, then there is an imbalance of who's more responsible. So it's not like all situations everyone is considered to be of equal responsibility in the toxicity of a relationship. I'm not saying that, but yeah, so she's asking that question, which is common.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual. Navigating all the various challenges we face can make you feel unsure or stuck in place, whether it's a relationship or going through grief or considering a new career. And, generally speaking, a therapist can really help with that by helping you to explore your feelings and by giving you the space to clarify what you want to do. In my life, I can't imagine where I'd be without the therapy I've had. During some of the biggest moments of my life, therapists have been there for me, to slow me down, to listen to me, to help me explore. Well, that's where BetterHelp comes in. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Really?
Are you going to be completely
I'm
honest?
always completely honest.
The other thing is that honesty is not required in therapy for it to work. It's often considered that way, that you have to be completely honest or else therapy won't work. Now, there is some truth to that. Like if your partner, you're in a conflictual relationship with your partner and you go to therapy and you paint your partner in a very convincing way that makes you look like you're this wonderful saint and your partner is a horrific human being, and the therapist isn't good or doesn't have enough information to figure out what might also be happening, what the other story is, then yeah, you're kind of ruining therapy because you're lying to your therapist and you're presenting a very distorted point of view. Now, I will say that most good therapists can imagine what is not being heard. When I hear someone, an individual client telling me things that are very one-sided, there's a possibility that it is, that those things do happen. Of course, people are abused. There are one-way toxic relationships. But if it doesn't seem like that's the case, then I have, at the very least, a place marker where I'm like, well, I don't know what the other story is, but I know there's another side to that story. And so I might even ask the client, I might say like, okay, and validation and hearing their story, giving them space to talk about it. I might say, okay, well, so if your partner were here, what might they say in response to that? Because you're talking about this relationship, and in order for us to figure out what to do or how to see it, we might need to understand the whole picture. And so you're saying your side of the story. What would your partner tell me, do you think? There's various different ways. Also, conflict in relationships tend to have very common themes that I'm often talking about in these reaction videos. But anyway, people are often really fixated on honesty, like you didn't tell the truth. Like a couple will go to therapy and they will give their distorted view or even will cover things up because they don't want to reveal certain things, and they will observe that in their partner or something like that. And then they'll drive home, they'll be like, you are lying in therapy. And what I will tell to clients, if I'm alerted to that, because sometimes they'll come to the next session and be like, well, we fought the whole way home. And I'll be like, well, what was it about? Well, it was about, she thought I was lying the whole time. She said I wasn't being honest the whole time or something. Yeah, I'll usually have a little speech of just like, look, regardless of what exactly happened, I'm picking up on some themes. And so I will name the themes, right? So the themes I would name for these two is, I'm picking up from you, Anfisa, that you frequently feel abandoned and betrayed. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. He lies, he does this, and then he's like, no, I didn't know. Let's not get into the specifics, but I'm hearing an emotional theme of Anfisa. Okay, so George, can you empathize with how she feels? Never mind exactly why she feels that way, but she does feel that way in relation to your behavior, whether you did those things and forgot, or she blew them out of proportion, or you're just trying to cover up, or she's overreactive. We'll get to that later, but can you at least empathize and validate that she feels those feelings? It's okay for her to have those feelings. Do you understand? Okay, so it's like let's so essentially I'm trying to get them out of the paradigm of I'm right, you're wrong, you have to admit to something, and no, you have to admit to something, and I'm not going to admit to that, because they'll fight ad nauseum in that zone, and it's not a helpful zone, right? In fact, in functional relationships, I would say well-functioning relationships, you will have occasional conflicts anyway, right? And at the end of it, the two of you might have completely different versions about what happened in that conflict, but it doesn't really matter because you can take care of each other and love each other and adjust anyway, even if you're like, I think they remember that wrong.
Counseling just to please me. I don't think George truly understands that I'm in pain and I'm hurt. He probably thinks that I just should be happy to be in America. But I still hope that this counselor will help us.
All right, well, that's promising. So she is, at least in the interview after, talking about how she is in pain and that she's hurting, which I do not doubt. And hopefully that can be discussed and explored.
First off, what are your thoughts about today's visit? What do you hope?
All right, so that's my license, an LMFT. James Sanders has a, so, just so you know, people with that licensed marriage and family therapist, they can have a master's degree at the very minimum, focusing on marriage and family therapy. They also have had an internship. They also have had a postgraduate period of time, 2 years. Usually, every state's different, but I think generally speaking, aside from California, which is a little wonky, the rest of the states are, I think, similar in that you have 2 years of experience that's being supervised, and then you are eligible to have your full-fledged license. Now, he looks like he's maybe around my age, so maybe he's been practicing for a long time, or not. I in my program, I've had students who were in their 60s and 70s, and they benefit when they start practicing because everyone assumes they've been practicing their whole career, because you don't usually think of people deciding to become a therapist when they're 60 years old, you know what I mean? Now, some LMFTs, such as myself, have doctorates. Just so you know, while I'm on this topic, that typically people in my field will get a doctorate in marriage and family therapy, which means that, a master's degree is about 3 years, and then a doctorate is another 3 years-ish, sometimes more. And for me, I had my master's in marriage and family therapy. I practiced as a licensed marriage and family therapist for many years, and then I went back to be trained as a psychologist. And since it's a different field, they didn't honor my master's, so I had to start over as if I was just with a bachelor's degree. And so I got an additional master's in psychology and then a doctorate in psychology. My license is not in psychology. I won't go into the weeds as to why that is, but the very short explanation is that I don't need it. It's not something that is necessary at all to me. I've always been a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I do identify as having both professions. I am both a marriage and family therapist, and I'm in that world and trained in that world. That's where I teach. I'm a professor in the marriage and family therapy department, but I'm also trained as a psychologist, and since it takes so long to get that degree and there's so much involved in that, a typical doctorate that includes a master's can be 6 years long, sometimes longer, upwards of $200,000 that you have to pay for tuition, books, and stuff like that. So, it's a huge investment. And why did I do that? I could go into the weeds on that too. I guess you could just say I wanted to. I also got a huge discount because I got my doctorate at the university I was teaching at. I basically got about 50% off. I think it was technically like 40%. So, and my institution at the time didn't have a doctorate in marriage and family. Anyway, point is that he has my license. We're similar. So.
I really came to this session just hoping for the best. If we could find something that makes our marriage a lot better, then we're happy with that, or I'm happy with that.
What are your
So it's really common in the beginning of therapy, particularly couple therapy, for things to be pretty awkward and for there to be an adjustment period, which is totally fine. Sometimes there's not much you can really get done in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the first session because there's a lot of energy and a lot of anxiety about the process. So a lot of it is just helping the couple to relax and get used to you and, feel each other out, that kind of thing. So, they're in that phase.
Your thoughts, Anfisa?
I feel like I talk about what he does wrong, but, maybe there is something that I do wrong. And I think it would be good for us to see what you have to say.
Right.
It's a great start. If I heard that from a client, I'd be like, okay, it's a good sign. I wouldn't know much beyond that, but she is saying, I think I could talk about what he does wrong, but should probably talk about my part in it too. So huge strength there for Anfisa.
Tell me your pain. What's not working?
He's lying all the time.
And that was an interesting way of phrasing it. I like it. I might steal it. He says, what is your pain? What's going on for you? It's different than a typical therapy question. In the therapy questions that I ask in the very beginning of the very first session, I might ask like, what sort of issues are you facing, or what's going on, or what do you want to talk about? Whereas if you ask directly, what is your pain? At least it encourages them to frame it or to orient themselves toward the hurt, which is almost always at the foundation of all of couples' problems. All right, well, let's end it there. And everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.